I am Atlas the Fox, and this is the story of a disease so deadly, it changed the world forever. In October 1347, 12 ships appeared off the coast of Sicily. At first, the people of Messina were not afraid. Ships arrived there constantly. The port connected Europe to the wider world, to Constantinople, to the Black Sea, to the Silk Road beyond it. Those ships carried silk, spices, silver, grain, wealth. But this time, something was wrong. The harbor was too quiet. Dock workers noticed it first. No shouting from sailors, no crews pulling ropes, no movement across the decks, except a few figures stumbling slowly beneath torn sails. Then, the smell reached the shore. When people finally boarded the ships, they found something horrifying. Most sailors were already dead. Others lay collapsed beside the cargo, burning with fever. Their bodies were covered in black swellings that oozed blood and pus. Some coughed endlessly. Some were delirious. The authorities ordered the ships out of the harbor immediately, but it was already too late, because hidden among the ropes, grain sacks, and wooden hulls, something invisible had arrived in Europe. Not an army, not a king, not a religion, a bacterium, Yersinia pestis, carried by fleas, living on rats, moving silently through the trade routes that connected continents, the same roads that once carried civilization would now carry death. Within only a few years, the Black Death would kill perhaps 25 million people in Europe alone. Some historians believe the real number may have been far higher, possibly close to half the population. Entire villages would disappear. Mass graves would fill. Priests would die beside the people they tried to save. And terrified survivors would search desperately for someone or something to blame. Some believed the plague was punishment from God. Others believed poisonous air drifted across the world. Astrologers blamed the planets, but nobody truly understood what was happening. Because medieval Europe had no microscopes, no germ theory, no antibiotics, only fear, and the fear spreads almost as fast as the disease itself. Long before the plague reached Europe, the world had already become connected in a new way. Trade routes stretched across Eurasia. Merchant caravans crossed deserts from China toward the Middle East and Europe. Ships moved constantly through the Mediterranean, carrying cargo between ports. The medieval world was becoming globalized, and without realizing it, humanity had built a highway for disease. For centuries, the bacterium Yersinia pestis had survived among wild rodents in the Eurasian steppe regions near the Caspian Sea and Central Asia. At some point in the 1340s, the disease began spreading westward. Fleas feeding on infected rodents became carriers. When rats died, the fleas searched for new hosts. Humans. In 1346, on the shores of the Black Sea, a siege at the port city of Kaffa have changed history forever. The city was controlled by Genoese merchants, and it was surrounded by Mongol forces. Then, plague broke out among the attackers. The Mongols brought the plague from their Eurasian steppes. They travel hundreds of kilometers to Kaffa, carrying the disease with them. And as the sickness spread through their ranks, they decided to use it against their enemy. The Mongol besiegers catapulted plague-infected corpses over Kaffa's walls, turning the dead into weapons. Bodies crashed into streets. Disease fell from the sky. It was one of the first known moments in history where humans deliberately used disease as a weapon of war and biological warfare. From Kaffa, terrified merchants fled by ship across the Black Sea. But they were not escaping the plague. They were carrying it with them. From the Black Sea, ships crossed into the Mediterranean. Then the infection exploded outward. Messina, Genoa, Venice, Marseille, Paris, London. The disease spread along the busiest trade routes in Europe. Ironically, the same interconnected trade networks that made cities wealthy made them dangerously vulnerable. The plague moved terrifyingly fast. A person could appear healthy in the morning and be dead before the next sunrise. People went to sleep with a fever and never woke again. The most common form was bubonic plague. Victims developed painful swellings called buboes, usually in the groin, neck, or armpits. They could grow as large as an egg as the disease spread through the body. Bleeding beneath the skin created dark patches. This is where the name Black Death later came from. But bubonic plague was not the only form. Pneumonic plague infected the lungs and spread through coughing. Septicemic plague infected the bloodstream directly. Both were almost always fatal. In many cities, death became constant. Church bells rang endlessly across medieval Europe, day after day, calling people to funerals. But eventually, the bells fell silent, not because the plague had ended, but because there were too many dead to bury. And each day, carts rolled through the streets collecting bodies. From street to street, the cry repeated, "Bring out your dead."
Bring out your dead!
The plague was spreading faster than medieval knowledge itself. Doctors believed the plague spread through miasma, poisoned, foul-smelling air. This belief later gave rise to one of the most haunting images, the plague doctors. They wore long leather coats, gloves, wide-brimmed hats, and masks shaped like birds' beaks. The beaks were filled with strong-smelling herbs, flowers, vinegar-soaked sponges, camphor, or myrrh. They believed these smells would filter the poisoned air and protect them from disease. The idea was wrong, but strangely, the outfit may have protected them, just not for the reason they believed. The leather coat, gloves, and boots covered the body, creating a barrier against infected fluids, and in some cases, the bites of plague-carrying fleas. As fear spread, real doctors and wandering charlatans began offering desperate and bizarre cures. Some patients bathed in urine, others drank mixtures made with crushed emeralds, believing precious stones could purify the body. In desperation, some patients pressed live chickens against their blackened sores, hoping the illness would leave the body and enter the animal instead. Some medics burst buboes with knives, others drilled holes into skulls to release evil spirits believed to cause illness. And nothing worked. No one understood what truly caused the plague. The plague was becoming more than a disease. It was becoming a social collapse. Groups called flagellants marched from town to town, whipping themselves publicly until blood ran down their backs. They believed suffering would earn God's forgiveness. Others blamed minorities. Anti-Semitism exploded across Europe. Jewish communities were accused of poisoning wells and spreading plague deliberately. Violent pogroms followed. The authorities tried to stop the disease too. Some ports began experimenting with isolation measures. Venetian-controlled cities forced arriving ships to wait offshore before landing. 40 days, 40 giorni. From that phrase came the modern word,
40
quarantine. Yet, even quarantine struggled to contain the disaster. The Black Death had devastated the medieval world. By 1353, the plague killed 25 to 50 million people in Western Europe, with some estimates reaching up to 200 million across Eurasia. In some regions, the mortality has reached 50%. Yet, The Black Death was not only killing people, it was reshaping Europe itself, because when the plague finally loosened its grip, Europe did not look saved. It looked empty. Fields rotted without workers. Villages stood silent. Farm animals wandered without owners. And in some places, forests slowly began to reclaim abandoned land. The plague had killed so many workers that Europe faced a labor crisis for the first time in its history. There were not enough peasants left to work the fields. Feudalism began to weaken, and Europe slowly started moving toward a more modern economic system. The Black Death changed the church and faith in religion too. Many people asked a painful question. Why had God not stopped the plague? Why had prayers failed? Why had holy relics not protected entire cities? For many, faith began to crumble. Trust in the church began to fade, and some lost their faith completely. The psychological shock transformed European culture. Art became darker. Skeletons appeared in paintings and murals. Writers obsessed over death, decay, and mortality. The phrase, memento mori, remember that you must die, became deeply woven into European thought. The Black Death was one of the deadliest disasters in human history, but out of catastrophe came transformation. Quarantine emerged, public health systems slowly evolved, feudal structures weakened, Europe's economy and society changed permanently. Yet, the plague itself never truly disappeared. Its outbreaks returned for centuries. England suffered another devastating plague in 1665 and China in 1855. Other regions faced recurring waves again and again. Finally, humanity discovered the real culprit. In 1894, Swiss-French bacteriologist Alexandre Yersin identified the cause of the disease, Yersinia pestis. Years later, in 1945, effective antibiotic treatment became available, but the disease still exists. The bacterium survives among wild rodent populations in parts of Asia, Africa, and the Americas, and when cities are crowded with life again, beneath the stones, history still remembers. Hi, I am Atlas the Fox. If you want more stories from history, subscribe and follow me into the next episode.